Just a couple of guys, a couple of microphones, and a heck of a lot of know. It's Football on the Know with Jim and Joe.
What they say, it's not the X's and the O's, it's the Jimmies and the Joes.
All right, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Football on the Know. I am Jim McPhee, and alongside of me is Mr. Joe DeCapita.
You know it. Let's go, know-it-alls. Welcome back for another edition of Football on the Know. And we have something else that's special for you. You know, we've been doing this whole Madden re-ratings thing of ours. We do it every single year. But now we are going to hammer down on the cornerbacks for this episode. And we're going to also talk about the AFC and NFC South divisions.
Yeah, absolutely, Joe. It's going to be super fun. I'm excited for another season here, and we got to see a little bit of preseason football last week and just warming up, you know, get to see the rookies out there and some of these guys that are fighting for a position here on their teams. And it's kind of funny, too, when I was watching some of the games, too, especially when we're going to talk about the Saints a little bit, but to see the fact that, like, Jameis Winston and Taysom Hill are out there getting reps and stuff like that as a wide receiver and then also, you know, quarterback, when they were even a starter at one point. But you're seeing them now in the preseason. It's like, what do they really need to prove in the preseason so much right now? I mean, obviously they brought in Derek Carr for them, but it's weird to see these guys. It's almost like an unfair advantage sometimes when you see guys like that at their caliber kind of, you know, in the preseason put into some of these guys just trying to make a team on the other squad.
Well, I mean, those guys aren't finished products either. I mean, there's been several teams that have tried to work with Jameis Winston. There's been teams like the Saints have been working their due diligence with Taysom Hill. And Taysom Hill still isn't a complete quarterback. He's shown flashes of being pretty special. You know, we've seen him playing all different kinds of positions, at tight end, at wide receiver, at running back. You know what I mean? Even just straight up being a blocker off the edge. He's even, you know, you throw him in special teams. Like, he can do a lot of things, and that's what kind of makes him real special. But by no means is he threatening that starting job at quarterback. But nonetheless, they have to put them out there. They have to still keep working at their craft and try to stay sharp because you never know what the season entails. I mean, something catastrophic could happen where DC4 goes down, and now someone's got to fill that void and kind of hold it down until maybe he can return. So that's why preseason is there. So they can do a lot of different things. Like, they can try new things, like as a team, offensively or defensively. If you wanted to you know, try out a new idea against an opponent, you can do that there, or new personnel, you know, formations and what have you. So this is the time where all these teams can try different things, see if they work, see if they don't work. And then at the same time, they're always watching all the players. They're always watching to see who's going to be here with that final 53-man roster at the end of the day. Who's going to earn that job? And that's why you see all these younger guys trying to hop on and stay onto the roster. And then you also got these rookies coming in now, right after the draft. They've been preparing for a long time, all their lives, trying to get to this point, and here they are. Now it's your time. Show up.
Absolutely. So let's get right to it, Joe. We're talking about the AFC and NFC South this week. So let's get it rolling with the Houston Texans. Again, a real debacle last season here, and bringing in Lovie Smith here as their head coach. And a lot of people thought he was already set up for kind of disaster and lame duck type of situation here. And this franchise has been kind of funny too, because multiple years they had that run of make it to the playoffs consecutively, you know, and pretty good defense and just getting by with a good receiver in DeAndre Hopkins for so long, and then just fill in the quarterback, you know, here and there. Since then, you know, they try to do some changes and turnover and moving on with the page of the Deshaun Watson thing move and all that stuff. But now, after a disappointing season here, got a new head coach in DeMeco Ryans here, and a new sense of, you know, kind of a new feeling, I guess, about this team, a youthful feeling. They get some receivers here for this team, a whole flip side on the defense here. So a whole change for the Houston Texans franchise that in the last remaining years has been kind of a debacle in this whole sense over there.
Yeah, and that's to be expected, right? Like you look at this team, like I wouldn't say last year was such a disappointment. I feel like fans and, you know, NFL fans around kind of knew what the Texans were last year. They knew they needed a lot of help at all different positions, defensively, offensively. But the one bright side of last season was really their offensive line, and that was it. Like, they didn't have a lot of weapons. You know, they were kind of hoping that, you know, certain guys would kind of step up and pop out of nowhere to help out this team. But guys like Davis Mills kind of kept the boat afloat. I mean, yeah, it wasn't a great year. It was bad. But at the same point in time, he was like a bright spot. You know, not all the time, but a lot of the time he was. He's the one that kind of kept them in games for so long, or at least give them a chance to win at the end. So, yeah, very limited positives from last season. But, man, has there been a huge change in the thought process, because obviously it's a whole new coaching staff now. You know, it's mostly 49ers, and rightfully so, right? Because DeMeco Ryans came over from the 49ers. Great defensive mind. He's being brought in here not only for his leadership, but also his defensive prowess, his IQ on that side of the ball. They need to get this defense figured out and corrected relatively quickly. So hopefully they can at least see some positives this year with this team. You know, and a lot of changes have happened. There's still not a strong defensive line by any means, but they bring in guys like Sheldon Rankins, a free agent D tackle comes in. You know, they're hoping that Jonathan Greenard is going to step up this year and make a difference for them. We got to talk about the big draft pick now. Will Anderson is now, you know, a Houston Texan. I know Texans fans are ecstatic about this move and what the Texans actually pulled off in that draft. They get Will Anderson. They also get C.J. Stroud. So a quarterback that they needed greatly, and also a pass rushing specialist in Will Anderson. That's nice to start off with. And then for the rest of the defense, it kind of follows out with a lot of different free agent holes that they filled with. Denzel Perryman coming over from Vegas, middle linebacker. Steven Nelson from Philly comes over at the cornerback spot. Jimmy Ward, longtime 49er, that's where the connection is. He comes over to fill in that safety void of theirs. Jalen Petrie had a phenomenal rookie year last year as a free safety. He looks to continue and get better this year, along to go with some of these other young studs that they have at corners with Derek Stingley and Desmond King II. So you see the changes that were made. They added some free agents to fill some holes. They're going to go, listen, they're looking forward. Not that they're looking past this season, but they know, they're smart enough to know that they're not going to be contending for anything this year. But let's see if there's some hope. Like, with the changes that they made, can they at least show some positives going into the season where, like, okay, defensively, still might not be in the middle of the pack, but you're better than last year. Or then you look at offense. Yeah. Same thing that you're looking for: more consistency, more points put on the on the scoreboard, and then what have you.
Yeah, both ranked 31st on defense, 30th on offense last year again. So anything changes could be positive for this team.
True.
And like you said, we didn't expect much last year either. And the thing, you brought up Davis Mills, and he looked good at times too. But then what ended up happening with them was just the inconsistencies and the turnovers. I think he had like 19 touchdowns and like 15 interceptions. So things like that. He
still didn't lead the league.
Yeah, absolutely. He still didn't. We know who did. And for some reason Madden loves him and some other things, but we won't get into that. Okay. All right, he was like that kind of working class hero in Davis Mills, and he's still there with his team, but not enough. The fact that the C.J. Stroud was sitting there, for the Texans to take it. You've got a new regime in here, so they're going to get a quarterback that they want to as well. Right. And then why not see what you got with all these guys? And you also forget the fact that they went out and they got Case Keenum here now, who used to be with this club a long way back, even to at one point. But now here he is, who can win you some games too, if you have to, if there is some issue that happens, injuries wise, with some of these other quarterbacks here. But Case Keenum, the veteran there, and a guy who has done multiple ways of training with VR and everything else, and he's that kind of guy in your locker room that will help these guys. He will be that veteran that will give them advice about things, because he's been on many different teams and seen many different types of playbooks, so he can be there to help them out. The fact that they go out and get Robert Woods here too to try and get a he's trying to resurrect his career because it didn't do much.
Let's stop it there. There is no resurrection that has to happen. He's just trying to stay consistent.
Right.
Like, listen, in all fairness, Robert Woods is still a good receiver.
Yeah.
Problem is, when you look at last season, he was on Tennessee.
Yeah.
What don't they do? They don't throw the ball a heck of a lot.
Yeah.
And he was put in the wrong spot. He was playing outside. Mm-hmm. Here you look at the depth chart here for the Texans, and it shows that he's in line to be the starting slot receiver, which makes a tremendous, amount of sense here. Mm-hmm. So this is like a veteran that's been around. He knows the game. He can still play at a high level, but this is a smarter way to use him. Put him in the slot. Let him go against the third-rated corner,
right? And
he's going to be able to move the sticks for you.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I mean. It's like this is a good spot here because, again, at this point in his career, even he can't be a number one, and you want those younger guys like John Mechie, Nico Collins, and even Tank Dell. We got to see him in the preseason a little bit, make some moves here. So they're excited about this guy too, and see if they can sprinkle him a little bit there in the offense. So again, when you look at the Texans, like you said, they're building right now, but they did really well in the draft, and we'll see where they can take this, I guess, and looking forward in this division where it's kind of a weird feel for me. Again, Colts had their chance at one point. Now it seems like they missed their window. Texans are building and moving forward. Jacksonville surprised us, I think, last year with what they were able to turn around.
Yeah.
And the Titans are just hanging there. But they're still like there. So we don't know what to expect out of them this year either, because they're still built by that running by committee kind of thing here, and still don't have a crazy amount of weapons here at this point. But we'll get to them in a little bit. But Joe, let's talk about the Colts here.
Hold on. Before we move on, we got to talk. So you bring up running backs, and you got to love the running back depth that the Texans have put together here. Dameon Pierce had a phenomenal year last year. They also bring in Devin Singletary. Yeah. I know Bills fans are very familiar with that name. The guy was a starter for them. Now going to be in a rotational, role here, along with other running backs that are trying to hold on and get a roster spot. You mentioned the young talent that they've added, and they did a good job of spreading the draft picks around from different positions to try to attack this team, all over. And they got a couple of steals in my mind. You brought up Tank Dell, which was one of them. Mm-hmm. Very quick, shifty type of receiver. I hope he comes into his own in the NFL at the next level, because he was electric in college. And if he can continue that into the NFL, he's going to be something special. Xavier Hutchinson, I should say. Mm-hmm. Big wide receiver. Tall, big physical type of receiver who's going to definitely be a red zone threat, to say the least, amongst other avenues that he's going to travel. And Nico Collins is always that veteran, right? He's been with the Texans forever. But I'm excited about these youngsters right now and what they could possibly do even this year. I think as long as they can, and the biggest thing for rookies is learning that playbook. Mm-hmm. It's tough. It's like reading hieroglyphics, for the first time. It's very difficult. But if they're able to retain that information, then that's going to get them on the field sooner, whether it be special teams or in the lineup. So one other thing is Juice Scruggs is a center that they drafted in the second round. I'm hoping this guy can get up to par, because that is a pivotal position in that offensive line. You're the captain there. You call all the offensive calls and the blocking scheme. So get on the same page with your quarterback, and let's see what you guys can do. Stroud had a rough outing in preseason so far. And it's to be expected, to be honest. Mm-hmm. I don't care how high of a pick you go. I don't care how smart you are or how good you think you are, or how good people think you are. When reality hits, when you're at the next level, guess what? Everybody's fast. Everybody knows the game. So let's see how he matures, and let's see how he grows and develops as we get closer to week 1.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So let's move on to the Indianapolis Colts here, Joe. And let's take a look at the Colts. And again, the preseason pops out, and now Richardson named the starter, and this is going to be the 8th straight opener with a different quarterback starting for the Indianapolis Colts.
Oh, man.
What do you think of that, Joe?
Oh, I tell you what.
Yeah, go ahead.
I tell you what. For the Colts, I feel bad for the Colts fans.
Yeah.
I really do, because it's been several years where they've kind of just they've done the one and done thing with quarterback, like veteran aging quarterbacks. You know what I mean? And every single year they're changing it. You know, one year was Carson Wentz, and that was just a debacle. It was so bad, so bad. Like, he couldn't do anything right for that team. You know what I mean? And then you had Phillip Rivers, who was at the tail end of his career, hoping that he could pull off kind of like a miracle ending for himself and right off into the sunset. And that didn't happen. He fell flat on his face, you know? So it's like every year they try something different and hoping at that quarterback position that they're going to catch lightning in a bottle. And it doesn't work. That's why these teams are all salivating for the next top-notch quarterback coming out in college, because what does that do for your franchise? When you draft him, yes, he has immense talent, but now you got to develop him. But he comes in at a low, salary on that rookie deal. You're hoping he turns out to be that franchise quarterback, because if he does, you got him for the next 10, 15 years. And that's really going to help out your franchise. So the Colts have been doing it wrong, bottom line. Yep. They've been doing it way so wrong. Irsay's a little quack up in the front office, and I think it shows in the organization. Like, they're not all together on the same page.
All right, we've got our first comment in the house with us tonight. It's Brandon DeCapita.
What's going on?
He says, bad idea. Minshew was the better starter for week 1. There you go. So he thinks Minshew should take it here.
For what, preseason?
For preseason.
Yeah, it's just one preseason game.
Thinks even maybe the better starter, he thinks for week 1 even. So he's thinking make him the starter already and then have Richardson move on. And people have talked about how, Anderson was another one of those guys who didn't look spectacular, but again, learning the game, gotta catch up with the speed of the NFL here too.
Look at every quarterback that got drafted.
Him the starter already, But I'm thinking too, Steichen, I'm sure he wants to give him confidence in moving forward and say, hey, this is your team moving forward. This is why we drafted you so, early, and this is what we're doing. We're building off of you.
But this is the reason. What you just said. We drafted you early. You drafted him way too early, first of all. And second of all, there was already speculation about him not being able to be ready for the NFL stage. Some people think he should have stayed back in college another year, one last year, just to kind of further develop your skills and get a little bit better. But now you're at a position here. We've seen this before. Look at Trey Lance with the Niners. Same thing. You drafted him 3rd overall in San Francisco. And now you're seen to, thank God for Purdy, because if you didn't have Purdy, then you would be, who knows, Kyle Shanahan could have been fired by now. Because it was a bad, not to say he was the only reason why they took Trey Lance. The GM was part of that, but they both would have been fired because it's a reflection of them going forward. So thank God they got Purdy in their back pocket, and that he's most likely going to be the starter, and played admirably well as a rookie, a no-name type of guy, come in and do what he did going into the playoffs. Yeah, but now you look at the Colts with Anthony Richardson, and same scenario. He was drafted, 4th overall. Very, very high. You cannot sit someone when you draft that high. He's not supposed to sit. We're way past the old mantra of drafting, where if you take a quarterback high, you could let him sit a year and then you can bring him in his 2nd or 3rd year. No, there's no patience in the owner's office. They want results right away. So when you draft that high, whether it be quarterback, corner, receiver, D-line, whatever it is, they got to get out there and play. You got to reap the rewards, if there is any, right away. So for Richardson and his struggling issues, I say this: look at every rookie quarterback.
Yeah, absolutely. We got Mike Tackett in the house with us tonight.
There you go.
He said, is Richardson a gem or an underwear champion who will be a bust? Look at his time in Gainesville. Tape don't lie. And Brandon was saying the same type of thing about him being the starter already.
Right.
Not being
well,
ready.
he got announced to be the starter already. And this is where we're having this conversation for, because they're being forced. You take a guy that early, you have to play him. You don't have too much luxury. Green Bay had a luxury when they had Brett Favre and they drafted Rodgers. Yeah, they didn't draft him early, but he slid. They took him. They sat him for a couple years, and they had that luxury. Colts don't have a luxury. They had no answer at quarterback. Even if you put Minshew in there, yes, he looks better. Don't get me wrong, but he's also a veteran. He's also been around. He also understands the game.
He knows the system already, too.
Right, and that's why he's going to look better initially. But in order for Richardson to get better, he has to get reps. He has to get out there. He has to experience failure. He's gonna see it. Peyton Manning, as much as he's a fan favorite, and his rookie year, atrocious. Absolutely atrocious. I'm not saying Richardson is going to be anything like Peyton Manning, but what I'm saying is every rookie that comes in, regardless of how great people think they're going to end up being, it's so extremely rare for them to come in their rookie year and take the league by storm. So, yes, I disagree with the idea to make Richardson the starter right now, right away, but I understand it on a business side of it. I understand why they're doing it, because he does need every rep. He needs to be out there. He needs to see good film, bad film, week to week, and try to correct it. So they're going to work with him. They're going to try to further develop it, his throwing ability, just like Lamar Jackson when he came into the league. Same issue. Wasn't a very strong thrower, but everybody's like, oh, what, short to intermediate game is pretty elite. He can get the ball to those type of receivers, and then he's got legs, So, and we've seen him even get better as time went on, working on his craft. So hopefully the Colts got the right idea. Hopefully the Colts are going to be able to squeeze out the talent out of Anthony Richardson going forward, and so he gets better. Yeah,
but I mean, again, if you're looking at trying to help develop him, but you need also to have your star running back in the house with you too, and the fact that Zach Moss is injured after that, you don't have running backs there to help you out, to help balance out the game, and they didn't do a whole lot in the wide receiving situation. They did draft with Downs, but I think it brought in Isaiah McKenzie from the Buffalo Bills, but. Again, not really setting them up for success, I think, this first year around. And you got to remember when Steichen was the offensive coordinator for the Eagles, they didn't really do anything until they were able to get like an A.J. Brown or a different like wide receiver like that out there to help out, Jalen Hurts, by himself. I mean, he was doing some things. We saw some bright spots about Jalen Hurts and potential and what he could do, running a pistol and moving, making some things with his legs, like you're talking about, maybe Lamar Jackson-esque, that maybe Richardson could possibly do in this offense here. But
he can do that.
But you need to get him some of those other weapons. You didn't see the Eagles do what they were able to do until they got some of those other weapons there.
That's true, and it's a slow work in progress. It's not like it's going to be done overnight. I know that they have a rookie from last year that's looking to come back in his second year and do something. You know what I mean? And I just want to take a look at Alec Pierce. Last year's rookie. He's coming into his second year. To team him up with guys like Michael Pittman Jr., definitely a number one receiver, and he just hasn't quite hit his pinnacle yet. He hasn't quite shown what he can exactly do. But they had guys like Josh Downs, like you mentioned, very quick, shifty slot receiver. So let's see what he can do. He might even actually beat out Isaiah McKenzie when it's all said and done for a starting gig. But what was the biggest critical thing? It wasn't. Receivers still need to work on, but they did try. They grabbed Downs. They have some younger guys coming up with Alec Pierce, and they still got Pittman. So they got something there. There's something there. It's not like there's nothing there than it was 2 years ago. But offensive line was a problem last year. Their tackles were terrible. They could not pass protect for their quarterback, and that's the one thing to me that if they can't stay healthy in those positions, Richardson's going to be running a lot more than throwing. And that's sad to say, but you mentioned Jonathan Taylor. Now, listen, he did report back to the Colts.
Yep.
He is back with the team. He actually left, I think, today for personal reasons, was excused from practice. He's not practicing yet. He's still not 100% healthy as of right now. So let's wait and see with his health going forward, if he's going to be ready, if the Colts are going to come back together and make that deal happen like we think they're going to do. Overall, this team is a slow work in progress. They've made some changes, and then you even look on the defensive side, there's not a lot of like oohs and ahs that I see on the defensive side in the roster. You know what I mean? Like, they got their cornerstones in Shaquille Leonard and DeForest Buckner. But other than that, you look at the secondary, which kind of got picked apart a little bit last year. And I don't know if it was maybe scheme related or if it was personnel, because I know that they started to get the injury bug a little bit late into the season. I didn't see what I wanted to see from the Colts this year is they made some changes on offense, but I wanted to see the same effort on defense. And I don't think we saw that. Like, they have a good pass rush with their D-line. And, Shaquille Leonard, great linebacker. Hopefully he can stay healthy this year. But other than that, like, there's no, like, cornerstone pieces that kind of strike fear in my heart in the secondary.
Yeah, Mike Tackett says, Indy has Jonathan Taylor, Mike Pittman Jr., an amazing line, just like they did for Matt Ryan, who is as experienced as they come. What will be different with a rookie?
Wait. Amazing line? I don't see that at all. I mean, what? Raymond Bernard last year was a sieve at left tackle. He was terrible. Right tackle Braden Smith, he ended up getting hurt, I believe, so they had, their fill-in, and obviously that didn't work out too well. So I would be cautious about naming them an amazing line. They used to have an amazing line not too long ago when they had stud tackles with the current offensive line they do now in the interior. Yes, but hopefully maybe a guy like Blake Freeland, who they drafted, maybe he can kind of crack that starting right tackle spot. Maybe he can earn that and hold it down for them. So we'll have to wait and see. They do have weapons. They do have some nice tight ends to throw to, like Will Mallory, that they drafted in the 5th round, who I think is going to be pretty nice. And Jelani Woods last year as a rookie, still coming into his own as a tight end, but a gigantic target.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, I mean, who knows with the Colts? Like I said, they've been that team that have been looking for something here to try and get it to that echelon. And now with a new regime in the house, it's going to be a little different to see whether, what they do, if they're really in like a rebuild now with that rookie, or if they're able to spark something and it kind of sends them something or somewhere in this division, where I feel like this division is open because there's a lot of the teams that are here. Like we said, Jacksonville got to like a quick start on their restart with Doug Peterson there. The Texans, fresh blood, new regime in the house there. Colts, same thing. And then the Titans, who have been lingering there at the top spot for so long, but now seem like they're at that spot where they could take a tick off. But their coach, I think, and Mike Vrabel, is so good that he just keeps them prepared every week, and they're in the hunt still. So, I mean, I think it's an interesting look at this division and where it might stand this year.
I think for this division, the teams that like the Texans, they are rebuilding. The Colts, they are rebuilding. That's why they had to draft quarterback. That's why they don't have a solid team overall. So they're still trying to figure things out. I think really this division race is only between the Titans and Jags, and I think the Jags have the edge already. We've seen what they were able to do last year, late in the season, to come back, and the Titans kind of falling apart at the end. And if you remember, what's something that they really needed to address? The Titans needed to really address offensive line. It was terrible. And yes, they had Derrick Henry. He got his yards and what have you, but the offensive line wasn't that great. So I see them still going. They're still going to continue to struggle in that area, at least for this year. And that might hold them back enough to where the Jaguars are going to edge them out in the end.
What's funny is I was looking back here at the sack total, and their quarterbacks of the 3 combined were sacked 60 times. So Matt Ryan was sacked 38. And was it Ellinger? No, who was it? Ellinger was sacked 14, and then I think Nick Foles sacked 8 times. Oh, Jesus. So, yeah, all together it ended up being like 60 sacks. So, Again, that offensive line was struggling, but again, you said injuries had plagued them too as well. So, it was tough, and let's see if they can make it out of there healthy this season. So, let's move on next to the Jacksonville Jaguars here. And, again, like I said, they surprised me too. I thought it was a different take in getting Doug Peterson here. It was kind of weird in how he exited the Philadelphia Eagles, but I think he's definitely a better pick of what they had before for a head coach. And we saw the difference. It's just a little bit of a turnaround midway, and the limited turnovers from their quarterback and stuff. So And with even the wide receivers that they grabbed in there, and they kind of overpaid here with the Christian Kirks and then Marvin Jones, and now and Zay Jones too as well. They really turned something on there, and now hoping to spread it out a little bit with even some additions that they had made, and kind of like you said, make a push in this division.
Yeah, and we got to talk about the one guy that's going to return, and it's Calvin Ridley.
He looks good out there too. I was watching him in practice.
Definitely a star in Atlanta, and obviously he had some mental issues that he had to address, and that's kind of why the Falcons kind of let him go, or they traded him in the end. They gave up on him basically. They're like, we're not really sure if he's going to be serious about football going forward. Not really sure if he's going to return. So they decided to just unload his rights to the Jaguars, and this is amazing. I thought when I saw the trade happen, I'm like, wow, I don't know if I would have done that. Calvin Ridley, with the way everything's going, is he going to even return? Is he going to be serious? I don't know. And hey, he's been putting in work and working on his craft and getting better and getting back to where he was. And he looked tremendous in practices for the Jaguars, preseason games. He's looking really sharp. And you team him up with guys like Christian Kirk, who they've already had, and Zay Jones, who had good years last year. Now you add Calvin Ridley, and if he's able to return to anything close to what he was in his prime in Atlanta, watch out. They have a serious receiving core now. To team that up with Anton Harrison, who they drafted in the draft to kind of shore up that right tackle spot, that's huge. They even added Brandon Scherf, who I thought for sure he was going to re-sign with the Commanders. He ends up leaving. They did some nice, they had some nice decisions here on certain people that they added or drafted to where it's going to really help this roster overall. And you got to remember that Travis Etienne Jr. once again was hurt last year, was a little bit banged up, had a good year, but was a little bit banged up. So he's coming back fresh. Travis, Trevor Lawrence is going to come back and be even better than last year, because you're starting to see he's starting to trend upwards as a quarterback in his development. You see little pieces of his game that have gotten better from 2 years prior. Now he's starting to come into his own. So that's going to be exciting to watch.
Yep, absolutely. Like you said, Trevor Lawrence last year, 66% completion percentage, 25 touchdowns, and only 8 INTs. Like I said, a difference from the year before under Urban Meyer. And again, hopefully to make a push here with this division where it is. What do you think about the Jacksonville Jaguars defense here, Joe, and what they've been doing here?
And that's the other thing. Excuse me.
Hey,
Same time. Look at that.
There you go. Look at that.
See? Pretty
passed
close.
It on.
But no, about the defense for the Jaguars, I would say this. I was not concerned last year about their defense. That was the one thing I wasn't. I wasn't sure, with Doug Peterson in his second year with Trevor Lawrence in that offense, how much better they were going to become. But they did. They took another step forward. Now, defense, I never had a concern. And they've kind of added a little bit more talent through the draft, a little bit deeper in the draft, but nonetheless, this team was actually pretty good last year. They really got after the quarterback, Josh Allen coming off the edge. Great talent with Trayvon Walker on the opposite end. I mean, there's a lot to like there. So overall, I would say that they are a very solid defensive bunch, very young players too, that are all going to grow together, and they can all become better together as they go. So chemistry is a huge thing in the NFL. And because all these guys are going to develop that chemistry, it's going to make them a better defense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Mike Tackett thinks that maybe that he's got a buddy that agrees with him here on his comment about the Colts. Next, let's move on to the Tennessee Titans, and we talked about them a little bit here, but again, known for that team and running behind, their running back and their workhorse, but they go and they get DeAndre Hopkins here in free agency, Joe, and that was the big kind of thing here, and I was kind of left scratching my head here too, because all right, we're trying to figure out. Well, he wanted a good defense. He wanted this, and he wanted that.
Right.
So he went to a defense that wasn't so good last year. A team that runs first, doesn't really throw the ball, but I guess he would absolutely be their number one. So it's kind of weird for me in location where he kind of decided to go. Mm-hmm. But I'm looking at this team, and I was like, all right, well, now they've got, a guy like DeAndre Hopkins here. So that's going to open it up, I think, for Treylon Burks, where he doesn't have to carry the workload, in there. So I expect that he can have a better season this year. Unfortunately, now he's going to miss a few weeks with suffering with an LCL sprain right now.
MCL.
But we'll work through that. And, but I mean, I'm hoping with not having that pressure, he's now that number 2. I think that fits him better here in this scheme. And now they can move forward with that and maybe get a little passing game going here now that they have DeAndre Hopkins.
That's the interesting thing about the Tennessee Titans. They've never changed, and I don't know, maybe they're making an effort to change this year.
Remember before when they weren't even using him, though, Derrick Henry? Remember like a while back when they were just like, when were you guys going to actually use it? They were putting him back when Arthur Smith, I think, was even offensive coordinator. Back before then, they were never using him, and then finally utilized him. And like now that's all they do.
Well, coaching change does that. When you have a good coach that knows his personnel well, that's when that happens. So, going forward with the Titans, though, like their receiving core definitely improved. What can you say? DeAndre Hopkins is there. Treylon Burks, like you mentioned, suffered a little bit of an injury. He's going to miss some time. Hopefully he doesn't miss, week 1, but is in jeopardy too. But I got to say, Peter Skoronski, when they drafted him, it was a no-brainer. For a lot of people considered him the best offensive lineman coming out and said that you could put him at tackle, you could have put him at guard, put him anywhere, and he's going to be, an all-pro. And I really do. I also believe in that. And for them to get the best offensive lineman in the first round, you had to. You were already suffering on the offensive line, and what can you say? Like, you needed to upgrade it. You did it with one draft pick, but you still have more work to do. Now, they did kind of duct tape and bubble gum, fill in holes with it and type of thing with some of the free agents they have ended up grabbing. Andre Dillard from the Eagles, tackle, hasn't been, coming to his own, so to speak, at left tackle yet. Like, he's a good player, don't get me wrong, but he's not one of the better tackles. But again, it's an upgrade, right? Chris Hubbard coming over from Cleveland. That's another guy to me that was kind of he's going to be thrown in there, and hopefully he can hold it down on that right side. I also want to talk about their tight end Chig. Very fast and gifted tight end who could actually play receiver. He, despite his size, he's that quick and fast. But he could become a mismatch this year, and coming into his second year, that's going to be huge for him. I think that it looks like the Titans are going to make an effort to throw the ball more often than they have, and you got to also wonder too with Derrick Henry, he's making a lot of money. Does that mean that they're going to kind of go away a little bit from the run? They're still going to be a heavily run team, but I'm just really wondering, are they going to change this offense to the point where it's going to make that much of a difference to utilize all these weapons that they now have at their disposal?
Yeah, I mean, and even on defense, they added a few different free agents here because, again, trying to get better from bounce back with what happened with them last year with not really stepping up to it and helping out that offense. Who, when you have a run-first type of offense and when you're in need of scoring points, especially in the AFC, who has gunslingers like a Justin Herbert and a Patrick Mahomes and teams like that who can just score on you just like that at will with, I give them 15 seconds and then boom, and good field position, and they can get down there and kick the field goal and win or whatever, or score a touchdown. Derrick Henry is going to help you at that point. You know what I mean? And we even saw last year when they got into some situations when it came to kind of even draw out the game a little bit and go out and put out the knockout punch. They didn't use Derrick Henry. Your star player in that moment is not on the field. You're looking at, especially even them, what injuries that they had. Like you said, even Robert Woods was non-effective. You saw him throwing to Kenny Phillips and things like that. You know what I mean? Guys like that were out on the field and receiving. So that doesn't play good for a team like this heading into those types of situations, because playoff time, that's the teams you're facing. You're facing teams like the Chargers, like the Kansas City Chiefs, who can just score on you at will if they want to, or give them enough field position. They got the quick pass attack. where Tennessee doesn't really play that game. So it's kind of tough to see what can happen with that, and that's why I think you even saw they were Lamar Jackson list, but the Baltimore Ravens fall out of the playoffs just like that too as well, because they aren't that quick score attack type of team either.
Yeah, and that's the thing that's kind of hindered them. Like the Titans, where they've been super successful is when they're allowed to drag out the game, when they're allowed to have long time-chewing drives and then score at the end with Derrick Henry and his running ability. So that's kind of been their MO for a while now, is they like to eat the clock, stay ahead, and then before you know it, game's over, and they're the winners. So now maybe they're taking a different, a different offensive philosophy, where they're like, okay, well, where have we struggled? Well, I know we run the ball, we chew the clock up, but like, where have we struggled? Oh, well, we don't throw a lot. We don't score quickly. There's going to be times when you need to do those things. And maybe they're finally realizing that, like, hey, we can't just be the bruisers every Sunday and drag out the game and chew all the clock, and then hopefully we're the winners at the end. We need to be able to score quickly and get back into games sometimes. We look at the Chiefs when they played the Titans, how they got a big lead, and what happened to that offense for the Titans. Fell apart because they are not able to come back strong and quickly and get back into the game. If you get any kind of a distance, you get a 2-3 touchdown lead, 9 times out of 10, the Titans were done. So now maybe this is a different offensive philosophy, and they're going to change some things here to where they make the offense more balanced and be more apt to maybe come back when they get down early.
Yep, absolutely. We want to thank you guys for definitely watching us out there. Drop some more comments out there in the comments section. We do have the comment bar open now here for you guys down there in the bottom corner. So let us know what you guys think on there and interact with yourselves out there too as well. Just a quick reminder, we are sponsored by Raise Energy, and if you go to repsports.com, put in the promo code Raise Them Up, and you can get a discount here on Raise Energy drinks. We love Raise Energy. It's sugar free. It's great. No crash. I drink it. Joe loves it. I got the Voodoo's my favorite. Joe, what's your favorite flavor out there?
There's
you
so
like
many.
Them all, right?
There's
They're
so
good.
many.
And they
dude.
keep adding
honestly,
new flavors every month. It seems like
that's the thing. Well. Honestly, like the flavors that they have aren't your typical flavors. They're all very unique. Some people think, oh, well, this tastes like this, and then another person might be like, nah, it tastes like this. So it's a great company. Listen, made in the USA, right out of Florida. Go hit them up. Repsports.com. Hit over there. Enter the promo code, Raise Them Up, and you get, what is it? I think it's 30% off of any purchase, so it's a pretty good deal.
Absolutely. And it ships fast. I just got my new order in a few days. All right, we got Mike Tackett in the house with us tonight again. He says, I'm going to play devil's advocate for a minute. Here we go.
We're not surprised. We're not surprised.
There he goes. All right. He goes, Arizona has 2 probably high first-round picks next year. Maybe not number 1 and number 2, but I can see them having 2 top 10, maybe top 5 picks. If they're in the top 5 twice, do they trade one of those for one more draft pick, or do they try to pull Howie Roseman and get 2 studs in the first? I don't know. This ball club hasn't really been known to do moves like that. So for me to kind of see if they do things like that, maybe. But I see what he's talking about too, because again, Arizona just doesn't look good right now. How quick of a team even has that kind of team, like rose and then kind of fallen just like that?
Well, that's what happens when you get rid of the coaching staff. You get rid of the coaching staff that was successful with Arizona. Despite all the injuries that happened with the Cardinals, they were actually a pretty successful organization.
He starts to come and then he pulls out.
So when you have a coaching staff that was getting them into the winning category and able to compete for the division, I just don't understand why you went away from that. Like, yeah, there was a little bit of a lull because you didn't have Kyler Murray for a while. He got hurt, was out for the season and what have you, and came back, still not anything still not working. DeAndre Hopkins is suspended, didn't hardly play 1 year. Like, there's a lot of things that happened with that team where you're like, well, if they got the band back together and everybody was healthy, they probably would be still a competitive team right now, and they would still be hunting for the division. But now that they like Mike Tackett just kind of suggested, they got two high first round picks most likely, and they're going to, do they use them? Do they trade them and get something? I think if you have your quarterback, you don't trade them. You stay with those 2 first round picks and you take the best player available with both of those. Like you not just go for trade up and try to get one special player, get 2 special players. You know what I mean? Whatever they think that they're going to need. So we know that offensive line definitely is going to be a huge need for them. Who, every single year we see these big O linemen coming out, and they're tremendous athletes, and they're plug and play type players. Maybe they use one of those picks to get one. Maybe they use the other pick to kind of maybe attack defensive line or corner, or they could go any different.
Yeah, they can go
any
different
direction.
directions. And if he's saying even too, if they're up high, then, and again, people are looking for a quarterback here, and they obviously have gone in on Kyler Murray, without
they've made the decision that they're sticking with him.
Yeah, so they aren't going to do that. So if somebody's willing to give them something to move up and grab that type of guy, then I could see them moving back, especially because, again, if you do need some more holes filled for this team, and it looks like they do, that would make the most sense here. So, again, depending on what teams might need to move up in position and where they're at, then they do make the deal, I think.
There's a lot of variables with that, right? Like you look at the draft this past year, what the Bears did, and when they were able to trade down, and they not only stockpiled draft picks, but they also got a number 1 receiver in DJ Moore to add to their team. So phenomenal job. Now you hope that the Cardinals could do something like that, where they could trade down one of those picks and maybe get a player and draft picks like the Bears, and that would make a lot of sense. But how far are you trading back? That's always the other thing, too, is because if they have 10 players that they are absolutely in love with, and they're like, well, we don't want to go any lower than 12. And 14, the team that's at picking 14 calls and say, hey, we're going to give you the mother load and a player just to get up there. Well, 14's too deep for us. Maybe they don't do it because they value certain prospects coming out more than that trade. So a lot of things go on, especially during the draft day, before draft day, but that's something that is definitely, something to consider. If you're a Cardinals fan, if you're a player for the Cardinals and GM, like, what do you do in that situation? What's best for you? That's what you do. Whatever they believe what's best for them is what they're going to do. My thing is draft picks are like gold, especially when you're picking that high in the first round. You got 2 of them. Yeah. Now that's a luxury. Now it's like you could get 2 studs potentially that could be all-pro players down the road or whatever. Or do you take one of those picks, trade it away, get more draft picks, and maybe hopefully you find 2, 3, or 4 more guys that turn out to be decent players. So you never know what can happen.
Absolutely. Good question, Mike Tackett. That's what we love out there. Next, let's move on into the NFC South here. I know if your brother's here with us watching, so I'm sure he's excited to talk about his Atlanta Falcons here. Again, that team is it was on a roller coaster ride last year. It's funny kind of reliving it as I'm watching the Netflix quarterbacks show and watching, the Marcus Mariota saga and things like that. But, now Desmond Ritter's in the house here. You got Taylor Heineke on the team now, too, which I'm kind of rooting for him, though, still, too, because, I think Arthur Smith at any point here in this, who knows what could go on. I know he wants to go in on Desmond Ridder. That's a young guy. They drafted him and decided to move on with him and stuff, but I really like Taylor Heineke there, and I think it's a good spot for him to be in here with the Atlanta Falcons. But one of those teams that kind of surprised me even for what they've done since Arthur Smith has come there, because knowing him throughout his coaching career has always been that assistant in there and moving through the system of Tennessee, and then finally getting his head coaching gig. I wasn't sure about this dude, but then the thought of getting Cordarrelle Patterson here to be like a running back / wide receiver and getting that offense going and smoothing it around and making something out of it, I thought was pretty interesting. Now this year, it seems like they've kind of just said, screw it, we're going to scrap a lot of this, and we're adding a bunch of parts and pieces on the defense to help the defensive side out. I would have liked them to go a little bit more of wide receivers, though, to help them out those too. You still have Drake London there, but a little more weapons, I think would have been nice. I know they grabbed Bijan Robinson here as a running back, but which is a great stud weapon here for them. But I was looking for a little more wide receiver.
A little more wide receiver, yeah, but you know what? You can't do everything in one offseason.
I know.
So,
you know what's funny, too, is just real quick, is that some fans are even trying to get them to convince them to bring Julio Jones back for one last retirement.
No, don't do that. That's terrible. Yeah. That's a terrible idea.
That's what I thought.
The guy
I'm like, what's he even
run.
really going to do for him right now? But I think it would be like one last hurrah for him. I'm like,
no.
I'm like,
put him at slot.
Yeah. But that just goes to fans don't control the teams.
There's a reason why sometimes, right?
But there is a thing to do.
But Drake London's already got that locked down.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Yeah. He can play outside. He can play in the slot. Yeah,
Brandon, real quick, too. Brandon says defense has been our biggest problem for the last 6 seasons.
Absolutely. And that's the other thing, too, is like Jimmy mentioned, like receivers. They need receivers. Yeah, they do. But they can't fix everything. You know, you look at them drafting Matthew Bergeron to play left guard for them, a rookie coming in to shore up this offensive line even more. Let's just say, like, a lot of people thought that some people actually believed he was one of the best, if not the best, offensive lineman over Peter Skoronski. Like, has that type of talent, but came from a little bit of a smaller school with Syracuse, you know, locally in New York. So, but we'll see how he progresses in his development. Drake London, high draft pick, right? You know, they attacked receiver there. Kyle Pitts, another first-round pick. You know, that's another offensive weapon there. And then now Bijan Robinson, which is a much-needed position at running back for them. Like, I know a lot of Falcons fans out there love Cordell Patterson, love Tyler Algier, and thought the future was bright with just those two. But when you had an opportunity to draft Bijan Robinson, this guy's going to be such a difference maker. It's unbelievable. Like, that's the type of talent that he has. He could end up being the next great running back in this league very easily. So that's kind of where they went with this draft pick this year, is they went best overall. Like, they weren't going to try to force anything to happen. Yes, defense was atrocious. Like, they were like Swiss cheese. You know what I mean? They just couldn't get everything all lined up. And now you look at some of the players that they've added, guys from the Saints and David Onyemata, Calais Campbell, the old goat is still hanging out there and still good. Dude, the guy had like 6 sacks last year at his age. I mean, craziness. Grady Jarrett. So it looks like they're going to go to a 3-4 scheme. And with that being said, like, yeah, they still need to upgrade their linebackers, but you look at them bringing guys like Lorenzo Carter from the Giants, Troy Anderson there at that right side inside linebacker. Bud Dupree, another name that they bring to play opposite off the edge, and he fits that role very well. And then you look at the secondary. This is something that they also majorly upgraded in. Jesse Bates III, coming from the Bengals over to play free safety for them. My God, they pull off a trade with Jeff Okudah. Detroit wasn't interested in him anymore, and he comes over to Atlanta. You know, so Richie Grant, another young up and coming type player at strong safety. And AJ Terrell so overall, this secondary is looking much better. The defense looks better now. Can they put it all together? Can they get the chemistry? Can they get on the same page and perform week in and week out? That's going to be the other thing. So overall, I love what the Falcons did this offseason. I like what they did in the draft. I like the free agent additions they made. And I think their team is going to be much better than last year. Last year, they were competitive but not competitive at the same time. They were in games like the Chargers game. Like you talked about the Chargers, right?
Yep.
They had the game won. And then the D lineman had to screw that up. But maybe that's why he's not on the roster anymore.
Yeah,
but anyway, but overall, I like what Atlanta has done. Let's see if this is all going to, develop into a winning team. And I feel like this team, you can't overlook them right now because although they've been kind of under the radar, no one expected them to do anything. I get it last year. Desmond Ridder is going to be the big question mark, though, this year for them. Desmond Ridder coming into another year of development, hoping that he's going to hold on to the starting gig. Because as much as you and I like Taylor Heineke, let's just say what it is.
Right.
He's that veteran presence that if stuff goes awry, they can say, hey, Taylor, get in there and make something happen.
Yeah.
This is Ritter's job to lose.
Yeah.
And Atlanta's only going to go as far as he has progressed.
Right.
It's that simple.
Yeah, and surprisingly enough, I like I said, I bashed a little bit the Tennessee Titans of what they do with just even the running attack all the time. This team is kind of centered about the run, too, as well. And we saw it there when Mariota was there, and then Cordell Patterson doing what he was doing. And again, now you've got Bijan Robinson there, so that will help out this young quarterback, too, as well. And, if this guy's lighting it up, too, and shifty and making moves and getting things to him, hand off the rock a lot. Don't ask a lot. Just don't turn the ball over.
And they will, because just like you mentioned, like you alluded to, like they do like to run. They do. But now, here's the other caveat of this. Is that Arthur Smith is creative. I've never given this guy credit for being creative because there are times when I'm like, why would you call that play? But drafting Bijan Robinson too does not make him just the running back. I've seen him run receiving routes. So he could actually come in and you could have a formation where Pitts is at tight end, Drake London's at receiver, and Bijan's in the slot. That could happen. And so they could utilize him not just as a running back, but also put him out there like an Alvin Kamara at times in that slot receiver position and let him just shred up the corner and get wide open.
And Brandon DeCapita says Matt Hennessy out for the season for too. Bergeron's going to start. Yeah, he's got a knee injury.
And that's why you draft linemen.
Boom, there you go. Absolutely. Mike Tackey, he's stirring the pot here. He goes, is Desmond Ridder the answer, or does Atlanta enter themselves in the Trey Lance sweepstakes? I think Bryce Young and Baker Mayfield are locks for QB1, but New Orleans runs away with the division.
I will say this about Baker. There's nothing a lock about that job. I'm sorry. Like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers right now aren't really sure who should be the starter. They're like, here, you start one preseason game, then Kyle Trask, you start the other. It seems like it's still very open. It's not even a clear cut. Yes, you would expect Baker, because he's a vet, would win it. But who knows what that team
Yeah, I don't know
now.
if that's even smoke screens or not, but if it is truly a competition, whatever.
It is.
That's more telling on what's going on with Baker Mayfield than anything. It's
definitely
You know
is.
what I mean?
Yeah.
If he can't be that guy and he's in a battle with Trask,
I mean, think about it this way, though. Baker's bounced around a lot, and he's coming into a situation where Trask already knows the offense. He's coming in, has to learn the offense, and get chemistry with the team that's there. It's all different than it was with the Rams. So for Desmond Ridder, though, I mean, I got to say, I do not have confidence enough in Ridder to say that he is the franchise quarterback of this team. Like, to me, Ridder when they drafted him, they were excited about him, and of course you're going to be. It's something different. You're hoping he could come in and take over the starting job with ease, but that didn't really necessarily happen for him. And now it's almost like they're handing him the job. No more Matt Ryan. They got rid of Ryan, so now it's like, oh, now it's your job. But it's like almost like you're just handing it to him because you don't have a better option. Like you have Heineke, who right now could be, but
he's
you're
older
just,
too.
You're
So,
because of his age, they're not going to say, okay, you're just going to be the starter. They're hoping Ridder can work out of it and become a better quarterback. But for me, I don't think they're going to join the Trey Lance sweepstakes. I don't foresee that, but I think this is Ridder's last chance, obviously, to prove to the organization that he is the answer. If he doesn't do enough in his development and get better, then you could see Atlanta kind of turn their cheek and could say, okay, next upcoming draft, we're looking for quarterback again.
Yeah, and I think I've seen that a little more often with some franchises now. It used to be we've given the quarterbacks a few years to develop, especially if there's even changes with head coaches. But this is the same coach with them for multiple years, and depending on where they are in the draft, what they do. Well, we saw it even here with the Titans. They go and get Malik Willis last year, but then all of a sudden they get Will Levis as they
drafted another quarterback right away.
Another quarterback again, consecutive years, and it was the same coaching staff and things like that. So it's kind of interesting.
You know what that tells
they're doing.
me?
So nothing surprises me now.
You know what that tells me? It tells me Tennessee's not very good at picking quarterbacks.
Yeah, it could be. Well, their best acquisition right now so far has been Ryan Tannehill, who was a long time Miami Dolphin.
Right.
And even with his career was kind of questionable.
It was up and down.
He was decent, but
Yeah, he was good.
So he revitalized his career by moving there. But yeah, and the Trey Lance thing, I don't think they're in the mix for that one either as well. It's interesting to follow that story though, and I guess it makes sense too, because if they're locked into a Brock Purdy, what do they do with a Trey Lance? And if he does look good and they talk him up about having great, physical, prowess and grabbing the great playbook well and doing well, that they can shop him. We've seen it with then the Redskins here with Kirk Cousins and stuff. So we've seen this type of thing before where they have two different quarterbacks in the house and they want to move on from another one if they found their true lock-in.
Yes, however, they haven't with two young quarterbacks like they are, so early on in their stage of their career that it's neither one of them is fully developed. Purdy still coming into his own. Trey Lance still working on things. He's also coming back from injury. So that's why you see the Niners kind of putting Trey Lance out there, and they're hoping that he's going to have a good outing because it's a buyer's market. So if they can show in preseason that Lance can play at a decent level, that kind of sparks the interest from other teams. Like, hey, maybe we see how much they want for Trey Lance. Maybe we see what we can work out. Mm-hmm. And we know that there's been 2 to 3 teams that have already called on him before the preseason even got here to kind of express interest and see what it would take to obtain his services. But we don't know who those teams are. And have they fallen off right now? Because the first preseason game that Trey Lance played against the Raiders looked terrible. And I thought that would have been a defense that you could have shred up and looked really good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it was not the case. So some of it was his own fault, and then some of it was surprisingly, the Raiders were playing good defense, which was weird. That doesn't happen. So just wait, week 1, it won't happen. But anyway, but for let's just say what it is. Atlanta is slowly progressing. They are they have a more solid team than they did a year ago, and I don't know how much better they can be, but it's all going to be predicated on their quarterback and Ritter.
Absolutely. All right, so let's move on now to the Carolina Panthers here, Joe. Again, we talked about Bryce
Fancy
Young
new toys
getting drafted there. Yep, absolutely. And so what do you got on the Carolina Panthers?
Well, the Panthers, you got Bryce Young there, and being a rookie quarterback there, he's kind of struggled too in preseason. And it's to be expected, guys. Just because you get drafted high in the first round doesn't mean you're going to come in and just take the league by storm. There's also the one thing that I do like what Carolina did is they also drafted Jonathan Mingo, a wide receiver that they took in the second round to pair him up with Young, because honestly, he used to play with Bryce Young on the same school. So they have some chemistry there, so they're hoping they can kind of reincarnate that into the NFL season. But also they have other receivers like Adam Thielen. I saw him play, and it was kind of weird for me that he was in a Panthers uniform and catching a pass. But it looks like their offense is kind of going to be attacking short to intermediate and not going to really push it down the field too much, utilizing that running game, but also kind of just working on getting the ball out of Bryce Young's hands quickly and not have him to hold on to it.
Yeah, and look at their wide receiver depth, like you talked about it a little bit here, grabbing just a few guys that are nice pieces.
DJ Chark had a good year last year with the Lions.
Yeah, absolutely, and looking good there and too. And I've been a big fan of him. And just again a good mix of guys here that have been pretty decent here. Again, drafting a young wide receiver here to help him out too as well.
You look at Laviska Shenault coming over from the Jaguars, still super young, seen as a slot receiver, and Shi Smith, a guy who's been with the team and has shown some bright moments from time to time. So you got to like what they have here. And it's a very young team still. Even Miles Sanders they brought from the Eagles at running back. Listen, they're not going to have the same kind of running attack like they did, obviously, because CMC isn't there anymore.
Right.
And, I forgot the other running back that they had. Dante Foreman. That's it. Dante Foreman 2 moves on.
Yep.
So that's going to be, as a Panther fan, you're going to have to get used to that a little bit. But Andy Dalton, free agent quarterback, comes over. That going to be that veteran presence, going to help him out, along with Matt Corral, who really hasn't been given a shot since he's been drafted and looks like he'll never get that shot.
Right. Yeah, that always makes me think sometimes. That's what I mean. When you talk about, again, regimes, this is one where it changed.
Right. Changes.
Frank Reich in.
Yep.
And now that quarterback that was there, well, this isn't my guy. And then we're at this great position here, too, to draft a quarterback.
Correct.
They go and get Bryce Young. Now what do you do about the Matt Corrals of the world? He's fighting for a spot in this preseason right now to try and for a spot anywhere. Now, I'm not saying even here because, again, you got Andy Dalton as your backup here. That's fine enough. So he's looking to say, hey, do I do well enough to maybe somebody might take a chance on me in another franchise somewhere else?
And that's if the Panthers keep just two quarterbacks, or maybe they keep 3, so Corral will still end up staying on there. But
I mean, we've seen Matt Barkley travel around as a backup and stuff before, again, who was looked like they wanted to be a guy for a team here and then drafts another dude and then he moves on and just as a backup throughout the NFL.
Yeah, and that's not what you want. You want to move around too much.
But Sanders, though, right now they're shutting him down for the preseason. And this has been the one thing about Miles Sanders is staying healthy. So
Injuries,
Frank Reich trying to keep him healthy, and they're not even saying that if he's going to be ready for week 1, you're hoping that you can. But Chuba Hubbard's still there, Joe, too, and he did really well when he was called upon in that backfield as well.
Did a good job. It wasn't too bad. Other than that, like you look at the Panthers defense, which they've added some older guys.
Yeah, they
for
added
a change.
a lot of veterans to this whole spot here.
Adding a little bit more leadership, like Frankie Louvu from the Jets to play
Houston
linebacker.
There too.
Justin Houston. And here's the interesting thing about Houston is he was with the Ravens last year and had double-digit sacks at this guy's age. He's like 39 years old, playing pass rusher and still killing it, still killing tackles left and right.
Yeah, but like all over the map. I mean, you got Von Bell they brought in. I mean, you got Xavier Woods. I mean, it's crazy what they're doing here, and they're trying to switch over this team. It's almost like they're, again, like we weren't the best on defense either here.
Well,
let's do something to compete.
The one thing with the Panthers defense, though, it's always been super young. And they've always been good. Like it's not like they're But
no, they're not ranked like absolutely worst.
They're hindered or anything, but I mean they're actually kind of middle of the pack last year, despite their injuries. Like they lost both their corners. Like they went through a turmoil of injuries on the defensive side. So now it looks like they're getting everybody back. Looks like a pretty solid group. And let's see what they can put together.
And Mike Tackett brings up the fact that here, when he talks about the Saints, that they're going to be a lock for the division. They run away with it, largely in part of their defense, too. And the Saints play nobody with a good quarterback. And I talked to about this with somebody before. And I think Mike Tackett is going to make up all of my points here for me here on here too as well. The Saints play Tannehill, Bryce Young twice, Jordan Love, Trask, Mayfield maybe, Mac Jones, Stroud, Lawrence, Anthony Richardson, Ritter twice, Fields, Cousins, Goff, Daniel Jones, and Matt Stafford. So again, not a whole lot of great quarterbacks, some good ones here, but winnable teams, though. Because again, the Saints, they're an interesting too. We saw them last year with this team. I think even the one where we were live, I think with at Saki, that was an interesting game that they had played with Arizona, and that game was up and down. And maybe it's just because of the Dalton type of deal.
No, that's a divisional thing.
But
that was a really
Saints,
good game.
Sometimes I think they play down to some of these other smaller teams, and then they'll play up to.
I feel that's the same with everybody.
Yeah, I mean, but Mike Tackett's making the same kind of point that I did too, because people are asking me, "What's your surprise team?" Maybe they're not exactly a surprise team, but I wouldn't count the Saints out because of the road that they had to get to a better playoff situation. I think is a nice spot for them to be in.
I wouldn't be surprised at all. Like that's not even a dark horse, a surprise, anything. That's a team that I expected with everything that they've been able to do this offseason. They finally got a franchise quarterback. They finally got all these guys coming back. Michael Thomas, who's been injured in on a hiatus somewhere, all of a sudden says, "Oh, now I'll play. Like I'm good. I'm ready to go. I want to get to work now." Chris Olave coming into his own last year as a rookie was tremendous. And then you team him up with all these guys, with Derek Carr as your quarterback, to throw to all these weapons now. Juwan Johnson at tight end, Adam Troutman, who's the second tight end. You got this star-studded offensive line. And then to put that with the defense that you have, to me, that they have to be favorites right now.
Absolutely, yeah. So if Mike Tackett's bringing it in, why don't we just talk about the Saints some more here, Joe? Want to just do it? All right, there we go. So I mean, we already did something here too.
You were already running into it. You might as well just go with it
too. Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I mean, Derek Carr, I think, is probably the biggest change, I guess, for them here that they've done. Just in the fact that they had brought in like a Jameis Winston here to try and maybe take over, because that they had Drew Brees maybe a season too long, kind of, for them, trying to make that one last push for the playoffs, because they always would come up short a game or so, with Sean Payton. But again, that guy who he ended up playing pretty well, but then he ended up getting injured and kind of lost his spot here. So now they bring in a Derek Carr who fell out of favor somehow here over there in Vegas here, and now he's over there and he's hoping to kind of be with a better position here too. Over there with the Raiders, he bled silver and black and things, but it seems like just dealt with a lot of crap being on the West Coast and being on the Raiders team with the focus that's around that team. Now over to the Saints, they've got a kind of a good fan base, but then also the franchise has kind of been set up pretty well for them moving forward, and a good setup team. I think a better situation, especially wide receiver situation, than he was kind of set up. Well, minus Devontae Adams over there. For Vegas, but I think a good spot for a Derek Carr to jump into.
I would say that, like, situationally, I think he was comfortable with the Raiders. He was definitely in a great situation. You got to remember too, they didn't just have Devontae; they had Darren Waller. They had, I forgot the dude's name.
I know, but I mean,
but like they had plenty of weapons.
They would have been able to this year because they moved on from Waller,
and they killed it there. So Carr, the unfortunate events, now he's with the Saints, and definitely it's a change of environment that he's going to go into, and obviously he's going to move on, and he already has, and now this is his team. So when you come into a good organization like the Saints are, and having everything already in place, like the only thing the Saints were missing for a couple of years is quarterback. They just didn't have an answer at quarterback. They tried Jameis Winston, bringing him from Tampa, seeing if it could work. It didn't work. They tried Andy Dalton, didn't work. Like all these retreads, these guys that kind of struggled holding on to their starting jobs, and now here they are. So misfit toys. Carr's over here, definitely a solid quarterback, a guy that can bring you to the big dance. And now you surround him with not only just one of the best offensive lines in the game, but also with all these talented receivers, with Chris Olave, A.T. Perry, who they drafted this year, who I think is going to end up becoming something special, and Michael Thomas for the first time that I haven't seen in like the last 3 years, where it looks like he is determined to not just come back, but to come back and help try to win with this franchise. I thought that Thomas almost lost faith in the organization with where they were headed when Drew Brees moved on. And because he was like, wait, we're bringing in Winston? Okay, cool. I'm still hurt. You know what I mean? Oh, we got Andy Dalton? Nah, I don't think I'm going to play. You know what I mean? That's kind of what it felt like. But now you have you have these tight ends, you have this offensive line, this receiving core, and running backs. Jamal Williams got signed. To add depth there, Keandre Miller, and we all know that, Alvin Kamara is serving a suspension, so he's going to miss some time. So they're going to have to do a running back by committee approach. And then real quick, just their defense was good. It's always been good, and when you got guys like Marshawn Lattimore, who's locked down, you got Tyrann Mathieu, a veteran presence at the safety position, and all these other really good players, and Cameron Jordan and what have you. Like, the chemistry is already there. Defense is going to be really tough to beat. And then now you team that up with having a good quarterback on offense to throw to all these weapons. They got to be favorites, hands down. Like, it's to me, in this division, it's the Saints division to win or bust.
Yeah, and they've been there even hanging tough there with when Tom Brady was there with the Buccaneers and stuff. And now that they look vulnerable right now, the Buccaneers, especially under Todd Bowles, I think now's the time they have to strike. Because, again, these other teams with the Panthers and the Falcons, they're young, but they're building, and they could potentially.
Falcons are the only team for me that might give the Saints a little bit of an issue,
and they always do, even when they play. I mean, how many times have we seen those rivalry games go back and forth? In each other's stadiums.
Right.
I mean, it's pretty crazy. Mike Tackett again with another comment. He says, "Bigger hot seat." Again, I love it. Mike Tackett's. We got to have a segment that it's just legit. Mike, it's going to be Tackett's Takes or something like that. Something like that, just because this dude is just bringing it all the time. All right, bigger hot seat. Here he goes. Arthur Smith or Todd Bowles? James Allen and Frank Reich are safe for the time being.
Todd Bowles. Got to go.
I got to say Todd Bowles as well.
Todd Bowles got to go.
That was pretty good.
Bottom line, Todd Bowles has never been successful as a head coach. Never.
Yeah.
And you saw last year, when you didn't have Tom Brady, how hard was it to win those games? How hard was it to do anything? Like, you fell apart. The offense fell apart. Mike Evans didn't look the same. There was a lot of weirdness going on in Tampa. And he might be a phenomenal defensive mind and can call a defensive, game plan like no other. But he cannot be the head coach. It's been proven already. When he was with the Jets, it was terrible. I get it. People are going to say, oh, well, it was the Jets. They didn't have a great roster. But that was his job, was to correct the defense and get them somewhere. And he couldn't do that. Now he's in Tampa, and I see much of the same thing happening. Yeah. I see a team that doesn't even have a quarterback, really. Like, are we really putting all our faith in Baker Mayfield as Tampa Bay people? Like, are you doing that? Like, you can say, oh, well, he did so great with the Rams. Why wouldn't he come here and do great? Because everything's different. Different offense, different personalities got to get used to. Like, I get it. They have weapons in Evans, right? They have guys to go to. But let's be real about this. This guy hasn't been successful as a leader. And I don't see that happening now. I don't.
Right, and it's kind of funny too, because like you said, it was there with the Jets, and didn't look good there. And I think it's the same. And the problem here is, your thing is defense. And what has even got worse with them is I think the defense was terrible last year for them. Not very good. And if that's your forte and now you're the head coach and you don't have Tom Brady anymore either, I mean, that just focuses more on you and what you're going to do. And he hasn't shown that he can do that. He's set with the goal again, like he was kind of with the Jets, draft a quarterback and develop a quarterback. That's what he had to do over there with the Jets, when he tried to draft and find that
Geno Smith.
And couldn't do it.
It didn't work out.
It done. It wouldn't.
Geno wasn't ready.
It's almost like he's set up for failure in a sense. So I think it's not going to look good for him in the way the Tampa Bay Buccaneers just came off of that championship and they were looking, and the fact that they mortgaged by getting these players, those star players in to make that run for the Super Bowl. They didn't really leave them with anything either here. And you could see it in the way they drafted here. So, and picked up players, in free agency. So it's just already set up for failure there. And I think Todd Bowles has got to have the hotter seat than Arthur Smith, because at least with Arthur Smith, like you said, even I'm a bit surprised about the creativity and what they're doing there. And you're set up with, like a Desmond Ridder and see what you might have. But the future seems like it could be brighter with them than I think what you see like with Tampa Bay, because also you think of their older wide receivers with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. They're going to probably move on at one point here. So then what do you do? So I think they just got a different road. They're in a different path than what the Falcons are on.
What I would say is that the roster is better for Tampa. Like, the only thing they're really missing is quarterback. That's it. Like, they have the receivers, they got a good offensive line, and they got a decent defense. As long as everyone can stay healthy, they got a pretty good defense. And then what did Todd Bowles is known for this? Just like Ron Rivera is kind of known for this. What do they pick in the first round? Defense. He did the same thing in the first round. He takes Kalijah Kancey as a pass rusher. Like, you didn't really need that position. You needed quarterback. You needed to look at, like, the future. Like, Kyle Trask, yes, it's an open quarterback competition. But let's be honest, if you brought in Baker Mayfield to compete with Kyle Trask, and neither one of them up to this point is like has an edge, because that's what it sounds like coming out of Tampa, is that they're both neck and neck, and they really aren't even close to a decision. So they're going to kind of ride this preseason out, and after the third game, then they're going to have to come to a decision on who is going to be their starter. If it's not Trask, that's another failure. You missed out on a quarterback, and again, you're in the same spot as before Brady. When Brady came, he was the savior because they didn't have an answer then, and they still don't have an answer now. And it's like, if neither one of these guys can do enough to just at least keep the train moving, then this thing is going to fall apart. Like you said, Todd Bowles is going to lose his job, and I have to say, like, Todd Bowles to me has never been the head coach type, but with this team, with this roster, if he just had a quarterback, he probably could skate through as a head coach.
Yeah, and I think maybe I was a little too harsh on his defense. Again, they were middle of the road. So
they're pretty good when they're healthy. You got to remember they had a lot of injuries.
The injuries, and then the fact where they were even a year prior to and what they were doing. I think even Devin White kind of just looked like he took a little step backwards from what he was the previous year. But when you look how good you did on that Super Bowl run that season, and then I just remember from there to there. Just was
contrary to belief, Devin White is not a coverage linebacker. That's where he struggles big time. He's phenomenal at stopping the run, tackling in short yardage. You know what I mean? Going sideline to sideline. But when they have to ask him to cover, God, he's terrible. A guy that of his caliber, his athletic ability and speed, and he can't cover, which is kind of surprising to me. But he's got awful at it.
Yep. Mike Tackett with another comment.
We got another one.
Here he goes, quote, "If you have two quarterbacks, you have no quarterback." Bill Walsh.
there you go.
From Bill Walsh. Bill Walsh.
Dropping the quotes.
If
Bill.
some of you younger people watching, if you don't know who Bill Walsh is, you should
look
check
it up.
Look it up. Yep. One of the innovative minds here in the NFL.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's right, because with that philosophy, think about it. When you're
they don't, though.
You're debating between two guys that nobody has a lead. You know what I mean? Like Baker Mayfield, Kyle Trask. Who is it going to be? We're not sure. What do you mean you're not sure? You don't like one quarterback over the other right now or anything? No, they don't have an idea.
Right. Well, even the position they're in, though, with the Tom Brady situation, they went in, they got the players, they traded away some things. So, and then where they're finishing is later on. So you're not going to get somebody to build off of. And the fact you were just waiting on Tom Brady to say if you were going to retire or not every season. So it's tough to set up for the future.
But you can sometimes. You're the organization. That's my point is, like, you're the organization. If you think Tom Brady is even thinking about retiring, you have to go to plan B. Like, you have to prepare your organization for the future. So this past draft, I fully expected the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to try everything to trade up, to get one of these quarterbacks that they liked. Do everything that they possibly could. Yeah, it's a large, that's a long way to go up, but it could be done. We've seen it done before. And this is a team that, what do they need? Quarterback. That's it. So if they gave up a boatload of picks to move up and they get themselves a franchise quarterback, sign Baker Mayfield and have Kyle Trask all compete, that to me would have been way better for them. Now you have a quarterback in hopes that he's gonna beat everybody out with ease as a rookie, and let's see where this team can go. We have a bright future now. Now we have a 5-year plan instead of a 1 year.
Absolutely. So yeah, there you go. We went through the review of the AFC and the NFC South. Thank you so much for comments out there, everybody. Absolutely. Mike Tackett, keep it on point. That's right. We got the new comment box down here. Check it out. So I'm glad you guys are very interactive with it right now. And we get to see them out there, and everybody else gets to see out there too as well, to see what's popping up here. We got some new people in there. I'm sorry. I don't want to. Yeah, to Corey, there you go. I didn't want to butcher the name. So
he goes, I agree. I'm not going into deep waters not knowing who the captain of the ship is. You're absolutely right.
There you go. Blake, I like to play on the words too, being the Buccaneers too. And Tampa Bay, I like it.
Works out well, doesn't it?
That is amazing. I like it.
But yeah,
bonus
he's right.
Points for that one.
And that's the other thing too, is the problem is that the receivers of that team, they don't have a choice right now. They redid their contracts. They're there for a while.
Yeah, they're there. But we've seen even guys like, we brought up DeAndre Hopkins before, having a career, early on, and even Andre Johnson a career in a franchise where you
right.
did not have a quarterback for many years.
Had a decent quarterback, decent enough to throw it to him.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Let him to get it.
Yes. And David Carr, even too, who, as we saw, was better at throwing than Dak Prescott. But absolutely. Mike Tack, I love the new graphic, guys. Does Jimmy have a permit for those guns? No, I don't still. Yes, that's right.
We're waiting for them in the mail.
That's why I'm in my basement right now, too, because New York, with Hochul, she might lock me down quick. These are not permitted. And I'm not legally carrying the right amount here, the way Hochul carries it. But, hey, I'm surprised you didn't say anything about my hair. I got my hat on, though. My hair's down on my shoulders, but I've been growing it out and hiding it right now on everybody, though. So. I don't know. Maybe I'll change it up soon, but thank you. Appreciate the comments out there.
Thanks, guys.
Joe,
so much.
why don't you tell everybody, see, when we're talking about the show and graphics, tell everybody.
I was just about to do it.
Go ahead. Hit it up.
Oh, now I can? All right.
Listen. You have my blessing, Joe.
Thank you. Thank you, Father. Hey, guys, thanks so much for the comments. Really dig it. Thanks to all the sponsors for our show. Guys are amazing. Also, if you guys know anybody that is into football shows, likes podcasts, what have you, do us a favor. Have them send them right over to YouTube. Hit that subscribe button on our channel. Also, hit the notification bell. Let you guys know when we go live. You can also follow us on Facebook. And you can also take us along on the ride. Take us along at work. Anywhere you get your podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, you name it.
Absolutely. Mike Tackett. Thanks, Biden. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So we've been doing it, a few years here. We're going to get into our Madden re-ratings. And if you guys are new to the show, what we do is basically, I can't stand Madden at it now. I don't even play it anymore. It's because it's bothered me, the things that they've done with this damn game and everything, and the 99 group. But it bothered me so much. We decided to do a segment to where we're looking at their numbers and the ratings that they give these players here and the guys that they like and whatever they want to give them. And then we look at their data and if it lines up to what their actual rating is and where it works. And we found there's major discrepancies all the time with all these different players that they had. So we decided to go through and take the data that they provided for us and we would re-rate the players, I think, and it ends up being a closer understanding of with the numbers that they've given us of what it could be. There's no more 99s. No more 99s.
More reasonable rating.
But again, if you see a player where they're rated at a certain spot and where they are in the listing after we re-rate them, it's not us doing it. It's using the data that they've given us and where they think they should be and what their true rating should actually be. All right, if I explained that enough for everybody. So, here
confused.
we go. Let's look at the cornerbacks. We're doing cornerbacks this week. All right, so here he is. There's our top cornerbacks according to Madden 24. Jalen Ramsey there. Jair Alexander here at 95s. Patrick Surtain, 94. Marlon Humphrey, 93s, along with Sauce Gardner. Darius Slay, 92. Stephon Gilmore still there at a 91. Marshawn Lattimore, 90. Tre'Davious White, 90. And Denzel Ward here. So there's your top corners that we have on the list here, Joe. And you have any discrepancies with any of the lists as how they listed it so far? Jalen Ramsey here at the top spot, which I hear Alexander with a 95.
You hit the nail on the head. Jalen Ramsey should not be number one. Like, don't get me wrong, really good corner, but at his age now, as he gets older, there's some flaws in his game now. Like, I just don't agree with him being the best corner in the league. I think he's still really good, still deserves to be in the top 10, yes, but that high of a rating to me is just way, way too high. I've seen him get beat by secondary,
especially
like second and third string receivers. I've seen beat him.
Yep, he's definitely taking a downwards turn, and
still,
for him to be ranked first out of all of them, I think is kind of ridiculous.
I will say though, he's still one of the most physical corners in the game.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so let's go. Let's take a look at Denzel Ward now. After the rating, after we crunch the numbers, he is now rated an 85, Joe. Okay. All right, here, moving forward. Let's go right down through the numbers here. And we have Tre'Davious White. Tre'Davious White here, number 9, is an 86. So he's around the same here. But actually, we'll tick down and see everybody. All the numbers you're seeing now is going down. Denzel Ward, down 3 to an 85. Tre'Davious White down 4 or 5 down. Same thing with Marshawn Lattimore here at an 86 here. So again, he lost 4 spots. Moving on to the 7th spot, Stephon Gilmore, he drops from a 91 to an 87, so he goes down 4 spots. Darius Slay, he drops to an 87 too as well, and he was a 92. So it's tough again too when you're looking at corners and where they're ranked in some of these spots. Do you look at these guys as, they're top of the game here too, but I mean, is 80s too rough for some of these guys too?
I think so.
Yeah, I mean, so it's kind of weird in the rating that they give them. And by the way, they gave terrible tackling ratings for everybody too as well on these.
Just because they're corners?
Just because they're corners, I guess. They just know they can't tackle. So, but and as far as, let me just go back to the camera. As far as tackling and bad, they were in the 60s for tackling. I mean, all of them, just about. Yes.
Come on.
So it's terrible for tackling and ratings. So
Lattimore's a good tackler.
Yeah. It's crazy. All right, so we got comments here about it so far.
Gilmore is?
Takori says, again, that's a popularity rating, and that's what happens too. Mike Tackett says, yep. Nice.
Great news,
great
guys.
News.
EA apparently doesn't drug test.
Yeah,
that
nice.
explains it.
Hey, I can get a job there maybe too, right?
That finally explains it. We've been wondering why the ratings are with certain players and certain positions and what have you, but why is Dak so highly rated? Why does he have a 90?
Yeah,
that to me blows my mind. And then as we're revealing the list right here, it's like Denzel Ward's an 85. He deserves to be a higher rated than that. Like Denzel Ward,
and they rated him in 88 even too in the start.
Yeah. Tre'Davious White 86. I think he's better than that.
Right.
Like all these corners like that you're showing, Darius Slay and Gilmore, I kind of get because they're aging, right? They're getting closer to the end of their playing time.
Yep.
So yeah, their rating should come down a little bit, and that makes sense. They're still really good corners, but their rating should come down.
All right, here we go. Now we're cracking the top 5 here. We got Marlon Humphrey here is 87 now too as well. So again, all these guys are dropping down into the 80s here. Patrick Surtain now
should be higher.
Is an 88.
And he should not have a 60 rating tackle.
Yeah.
Surtain is like, he brings the boomstick.
I think he was the one that was actually like a 71, I think they gave him.
He should be higher than that.
Yeah, absolutely. So here we go. Jair Alexander now, he drops from a 95 to an 87 now, Joe, after taking the numbers that they had given him. So they dog this guy. So overall, again, they say that, this is one of the better corners in the league.
He is.
But they're not telling us this in the data, So here we go.
That's
finally,
because they're not getting drug tested. Their
number one guy, Jalen Ramsey, that they rated a 95, he is sitting right there at 90. All right, so there he goes from 95. That's the original. And then that's the list there for that. So, Joe. Oh, we got a couple of comments here, too, as well, dropping in, what they got. A.J. Terrell got robbed. That's what Brandon DeCapita says here. Yeah, a lot of these guys do.
Yeah, a lot of these guys do, definitely. And then even the guys that we listed in the top 10 are getting robbed of their ratings. Like, you mean to tell me that Ramsey's still number 1 and he still has a 90? But yeah, to me, honestly, like
a drastic difference. For
Alexander, Surtain, Humphrey, Gardner, like all the 4 that are below Ramsey should be above him. They should be. Lattimore should be higher. He should be above. He definitely should be above Gilmore. Definitely. Slay maybe above him. Maybe. And Tre'Davious White, he should be Gilmore should be way lower because he's an aging corner. He's not as quick or he's not as fast, straight line speed as he once was. He doesn't have that anymore. So those guys should be brought down to earth a little bit more. And AJ Terrell has been an ascending corner for the last few years, and you would expect him to kind of even be close to the top 10 or maybe be in the bottom. Right. But to me, for me, it's blasphemy that Ramsey's still number 1.
Yeah.
He's another corner that is aging. He's getting beat more often. So, we've talked about this before. I feel like I bring it up, every time we do ratings, but it's to me, it blows my mind that I just want to know how they create the rating. Do they watch, my thing is, do they watch the games? Because as a fan and someone that likes to follow football, I try to watch everything as much as I can, and that's why I feel like I'm a better judge of a rating than these so-called data experts at EA. Like they're always looking at like, oh, well, Ramsey's a fan favorite and Ramsey's this and Ramsey's that. He should be at number 1. Why?
Would you ask about being a good tackler again?
Surtain.
65.
Lies.
Jalen Ramsey, what do you think his rating is for tackling?
74.
74. Boom.
I'm good at that.
There you go. You are good at that. How about that? What do you think? What do you think Stephon Gilmore's tackling rating is?
Stephon Gilmore?
Yeah.
66.
No. 76. He's the
Shouldn't
highest.
he should not be the highest.
He's the highest on there.
Should not be the highest.
Anyway, so what we do too here before we get into the final top 10, I always look at the next couple guys like your AJ Terrell, stuff like that. Yeah. Guys that are right outside the top 10. I crunch their numbers and see if they put ratings to these guys to where they maybe would have jumped into the top 10 spot. Mm-hmm. So that being said, let's get into the new top 10 cornerbacks for Madden 24 by their ratings. Here it is, Joe. And we've got Jalen Ramsey here at number 1. Patrick Surtain now jumps into number 2. Sauce Gardner's still there, sitting at 3. Darius Slay. And then Jair Alexander falls all the way from 2nd, being tied with a Jalen Ramsey by the ratings that they give it him. Now terrible. He's in 5th. Marlon Humphrey's there. Stephon Gilmore's still there. And Trayvon Diggs now jumps into the top 10 spot at 8 here for corners. And then Marshawn Lattimore, Tre'Davious White, and Denzel Ward bumped from the top 10, Joe.
Take Gilmore out of there.
There you go. And that's your new re-ratings based on Madden's ratings. So, again, crunch the numbers. This is the stuff that they give you and why, again, I don't play Madden anymore, and I think that nobody knows what they're talking about with it. But so there you go. Yeah, so next time we'll get to a different position, and I hope you guys enjoy that list. Don't forget to like and subscribe like Joe says as well. And keep rolling in with the comments. Mike Tackett's here. He says, I've started a group on Operation Sports where we re-rate players based on their Pro Football Focus rating, not EA's performance rating adjusters. Huh. Interesting.
Mike, you're gonna.
Sports. I like it.
I'm curious. I'd like for you, if you can, to share with us. Maybe outside of the show or whatever, just so we can try to compare to see our re-ratings that we made and your guys' ratings.
Well, yeah. I mean, depending on what EA gives us, again, it depends because we use the data that EA gives us. It's not even our ratings of what we think. If we gave you our top 10, I think people would hate on our top 10 before because we've done that, Joe. Remember when we did top 10 we did top 20 quarterbacks, I think,
we did.
In the league currently.
Yeah. That was like there was a season that we did that.
Bugged. Like we were just saying where they're at in their careers.
Yeah.
We even took career in
current.
consideration.
It was current
right now in the league playing right now. This is where we see them.
Yeah.
And it went crazy, man. It was like viral. Maybe we do another couple lists like that just to see people's reactions. Let us know out there in the comments what you guys think if we do another list like that. And if you guys do lists like that, drop them in the comments on some of our next shows.
Definitely.
As well.
Let us know, if you want us to do that, we will do that for you guys. We'll do a top 10, top 15 list of whatever position that you guys want, whether it be Madden or whether it be currently in the NFL, So for the upcoming season, like how we would do it is it'd be kind of like based off of what we saw last year, So we've done it before. We had a lot of feedback, to say the least. It was a lot of fun, but we would do that again for sure. And if you're new to the show, do us a huge favor. Go over to YouTube, hit that subscribe button on our channel. Also, hit the notification bell to let you guys know when we go live. And also, you can take us with you on the go. We are on iTunes, Spotify, you name it. Anywhere you get your podcasts, drop a follow there as well.
All right. I think we're going to wrap up the show from there, Joe. Are you ready to head out of this piece? All right. We'll see you guys next time, and we'll do it again.
Join us next week from 8 till 10 Wednesday night for more Football on the Know with Jim and Joe.